breast cancer and chemotherapy when breast cancer metastasized. When a common drug, 5-FU, was used, but when folic acid was added to the mixture, there was a remission rate increased significantly. So just using a supplement helps the efficacy of chemotherapy. And that's what we're often looking at in integrative oncology. It's not like we're going to say, no, we're not going to use chemotherapy, radiotherapy. We're going to say, let's use it appropriately. Yes, let's use it when we can also add other compounds to it, herbs and supplements, to increase its efficacy. You know, one of the factors associated with chemotherapy is that the tumors become immune to the effects of that. Herbs actually enhance the efficacy of the chemotherapy, so you need less chemotherapy, and the effect lasts longer. So it enhances remission. This is on non-small cell lung cancer, which is the most common form of lung cancer. And they're looking here at folic acid and intake and remission rates. Therapeutic factors, herbs. Cryptotenshenone is a extract of a Chinese herb called Salvia mirarosa, danshen. And this is a interesting compound because it actually blocks angiogenesis. So this is a study that was done in a reputable journal several years ago, angiogenic effector. And there's quite a lot of these. I've selected just a few from the research. My book has a lot more, and I've got another book coming out in 2 or 3 months, if I ever get around to finishing the references. That's one of the worst things about writing books is references. And I'm doing my second doctorate at the moment, and Doctor of Science. And I put my first exegesis in, and my supervisor looked at it and said, reference every sentence. I said, but every sentence. So I become mad for referencing. And it's important. It is important because there's some validity in that. If somebody has done something and there's some peer review on it, creates some validity in that. It's not just me standing up and saying to you, look, this stuff works. It's me saying, this stuff works, and these are the people who've actually done that research. Conjugated linoleic acid. As I said earlier, grain-fed animals have no conjugated linoleic acid. Linoleic acid, omega-6s, are inflammatory, but conjugated form is not. And that's one of the factors associated supposedly with the issue of obesity, is that we're not getting enough conjugated linoleic acid. If you eat beef, I'm not recommending you do, but if you do eat beef or lamb, make sure you get the grass-fed form. If you eat chicken or eggs, make sure that those chickens have been out scratching in the earth and eating grass. Why do fish have lots of omega-3s? Sorry? They eat grass. Seaweed is grass. You know, there's a farm in America called Pace Farm, I believe. And the farmer has about 300 acres, and about 60% of it is just wooded. And he produces chickens and eggs and milk and beef. And he was asked, what do you produce here? He said, grass. Grass and animals that eat grass are transforming sunlight into energy. Grains are not appropriate. That's why they give cows antibiotics, because grains are not appropriate food for cows. And they get sick. Anyway, conjugated linoleic acid, you can get it in supplement form as well. But there are some of these studies that were done on the prevention of cancer by inhibiting the formation of arachidonic acid. Conjugated linoleic acid blocks the conversion of linoleic acid, omega-6, into arachidonic acid, which is the pro-inflammatory, which cascades down into prostaglandins and so forth like that. So, simple. You want to deal with some of the issues to prevent cancer, make sure you eat grass-fed animals. If you're not, if you're a vegetarian, then you don't have to worry about it. But if you're vegetarian, make sure you don't eat too much vegetable oil. and get good quality protein. And watch your B12 levels. Here's another study that was done on conjugated linoleic acid. Breast cancer cells induced by estradiol and insulin. And it actually had a cytotoxicity effect on tumor cells. It elicits apoptosis in human breast cancer cells by enhancing some of the anti-tumoral effects by p53 gene. And melatonin. I mentioned melatonin before. Best way to get melatonin is to get sunlight. Now, this is a difficult thing because we live in a culture that says if you get out in the sun, you're going to get skin cancer. But, of course, melatonin and D3 come from sunlight. I was doing a conference. I was giving a speech at a conference, and one of the speakers was from the U.S., and he was doing research on D3, and he lives in Phoenix, Arizona. And if they have a cloud, everybody goes out and looks at it because it's so unusual. And he says 40% of his patients are deficient in D3. His research shows that our ancestors walked around half naked in Africa 12 hours a day exposed to the sun. And their levels of D3 were equivalent to about 20,000 IU, international units a day. And that's what he recommends to his patients, that level of that. Now, I don't want to get into the debate whether you should get in the sun or not. I think some of the factors of skin cancer are not just the sun, it's some of the nutrient factors as well. But again, that's not part of this conversation. But I think it is important to keep your D3 level and your melatonin levels up. And if you're going to get out in the sunlight, make sure you get sun in your eyes. I know it's cool to have sunglasses. You always look cool, you got those aviator Ray-Bans on, looking good. But you want that sunlight in your eyes so you get the melatonin. And melatonin is really important. And if you don't get that, if you're inside all day, working in an office, or if you're a traditional culture where you cover yourself, then take the supplements. Anyway, these are one of the studies. Acts as a naturally occurring anti-estrogen on tumor cells. It's also one of the best brain antioxidants. I take melatonin every day. These were some of the studies that were done on melatonin levels and so forth like that. One of the factors also about D3 is where's D3 stored? Sorry? Liver and fat tissue. So one of the things that happens in the winter, you get sun in the summer. You store that in your liver and in your fat tissues. And in the winter, you lose all of that fat because there's not a lot of food around, and you get the D3 getting back into your bloodstream. So there's a natural seasonal variation in that so that the body stores and then releases. And animals naturally, in traditional environments, lose weight over the winter. Also, people don't work very hard in the winter. In Sydney, it's horrible. People are working average 50 hours a week. It's madness. Madness to work that many hours. The French peasants in the 17th century worked 21 hours a week, average. Springtime and harvesting time, more. But in the middle of summer and in the winter, they just sat around the fire, drank their wine, ate the pickles, and relaxed, tell stories, read books. Average amount of work that a hunter-gatherer has per week to get all of its needs met, both in food, clothing, and shelter, 10 to 12 hours a week. So we're working 5 times longer and in much more stressful environment than is natural for us. Now, another study on melatonin and circadian rhythms. Again, some more studies on those things. Linoleic acid conversion. It helps with heavy metals and mercury. These are some of the studies that were done on that. I won't stop there. Inosol, phosphate 6, IP6, found in many plants. And so if you're eating good sources of grains and cereals, whole grains and cereals, you're getting IP6 in there. it's just too much.